We're back. It's your favorites, Dani and Keely. We're LGBTQ plus life coaches, and this is Coming Out Happy. I'm so excited that you're joining us today because honestly, I think our topic's going to be fun, but in a way that's also really helpful. Because I think when we talk about this topic, it's not fun, but we're going to make it more fun because honestly, we all need a little bit more lightness in our life. Do you agree?
I definitely agree.
It's just too much sometimes. And especially when we're talking about breakups, queer breakups, especially, right? I'm a hopeless romantic, you're a hopeless romantic, and you might be too. So let's talk a little bit before we get into it and we kind of go into our topic of healing from a long-term breakup. I really want to talk about the things that we've been doing over the last couple months, what it's been looking like at Coming Out Happy, and how much fun we've been having, because we've been having a lot of fun, haven't we?
Yes.
I mean, we do work together. We are in a partnership. There's a lot that goes on, but we try to keep you all in the loop. And honestly, the biggest thing is we try to keep it real.
Yes.
More than anything.
That's what we're here for. That's why we're doing this podcast right now.
So a little bit about what's going on. Something really cool that you should definitely keep an eye out for is the events that we do. We do 3-day virtual retreats where people from all over the world join us. And that has been something I've been getting so much joy out of lately. We just had one over Valentine's Day weekend, and it was absolutely incredible. We had so many amazing people come, so many realizations. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about on our podcast, but in so much more depth because we have 3 days to talk about it together.
Yeah.
And that has been something that we've been doing. So keep an eye out for the next one. I believe it's May.
It will. Yeah, we'll be promoting it in April, so you'll get some invitations all throughout April.
Yeah, so if you haven't joined our newsletter, that's a great place to stay connected. Of course, you can join us on Instagram. We're on the stories every day. We're talking to you on there, doing some fun polls, different things. But also something really new is we've been into our blog lately. We have our amazing marketing assistant helping us out and helping us kind of pull from some of the content that we've created already on Instagram, but really putting it into a longer form for you all to read, for you to get into, talking about people pleasing, red flags, all the things that you have questions about and you're in our DMs about. We're talking about it and really expanding on all these topics, because truly what Coming Out Happy is for is to provide you so much value and to help move you forward. So that's what we're talking about, breakups. That's what we're talking about, red flags.
But if you don't know us, we're Dani and Keely again. We're your LGBTQ plus life coaches, and we help highly driven queer adults all around the world live freely, love fully, and impact greatly, which really means we help you create really healthy relationships and become your most authentic self. So how can we work together? Before we dive into today's podcast, how can we work together?
How can we work together? Well, right now we have our program and it's Pride Amplified. I'm getting a call here. 1 second. We have our program Pride Amplified, and really Pride Amplified is so incredible because it takes you through not only just coming to a virtual retreat, but it takes you through 6 months of really diving in, getting support, and showing you what it looks like to go from, okay, Dani Keely, I'm really confused. Maybe I did just get out of a breakup. Maybe I've been struggling for a long time and I feel really distant from who I know I'm supposed to be. How can I take steps towards loving who I am, creating a secure connection with myself so that when I go out into the world, when I'm having these relationships with friends, romantic partners, family, whatever it is, that I know where my boundaries are, I know where I stand, and I know how to be really, really confident to have healthy relationships. This program is all encompassing and fully takes you through that entire journey. I mean, it's one of the best programs that I've ever been a part of. Let me say that. I have a lot of fun with everyone too. Yeah. Having a community, having people that are going through the same thing. They're queer, like-minded. They want to be successful in their life and create things that really make them happy. I think almost every single person we work with, let me just say every single person. I don't want to say almost. I don't even know why I said almost. Every person we work with is a leader. They have a deep passion to serve others. They have a deep passion to, make an impact, and they're here for a reason. They fully believe that, and they want more out of this life.
They know that they have to work on themselves to create those healthy relationships and to make the impact that they want to make. So that's a little bit about how we can support you just before we dive into our little podcast we have here today.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background. And again, if you have questions about it, you're like, Dani Keely, I'd love to be on your team. I'd love to have your support as I walk through this next phase and really move me forward. That's what we're here for. Give us a DM, send us a DM, give us a DM. We'll be there
over on Instagram. Yeah, so that's the best way to get in contact with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about, did I miss anything? Podcasts are once a month. Oh, we have a free Facebook group.
Yeah.
Feel free to hop in there. We've got questions going each week. That's where we're posting the blog, where you can kind of have your weekly reads. We're keeping you in the loop 2 times per week.
Yeah, definitely. And the best way to find all of these different resources, programs, courses, and more is to go to ComingOutHappy.com. That's where it all lives.
Oh my gosh, there's so much. We're just putting so much out there.
I know, but now we are diving into the podcast.
Okay.
I know you have been waiting. So we're talking all about breakups today, and let's just dive into it.
Let's talk about breakups.
Yeah.
Can we just like take a moment? Breakups suck.
Breakups are really hard.
They
Queer
are.
breakups are really hard. And you know what I want to say? A lot of the messages that we get have been getting recently have been from people who are experiencing not just their first queer breakup, but like after 100 of the same kinds of
100?
long-term, almost the same kind of long-term queer breakups. They're
Yeah.
wondering why it's not working, what they could have done better, all of these different things. And I really am excited to dive into it today, because usually when you're fresh out of a breakup, there are so many different questions that are going through your mind. Maybe it's like, will we get back together? Should I move on? Should I hold on to my ex? Why do I think about them constantly? Will I ever find love again? And you know what's interesting about that question is a lot of the people that we work with have come out later in life, or they just are trying to figure out as an adult if love is possible for them, because they feel a lot of pressure. You know, they're like, I'm getting older. Am I going to find another relationship like this again? So that's definitely a question that we get a lot.
Can you dive into that a little bit more about like the societal pressure of having it all figured out by the time you're 30, or, you know, getting, or even letting people down? Maybe you let this person into your life, your family, you intertwine them with your friends, and it's like, okay, now I have to start over and, you know, get to know someone all over again and bring them into my family again, if that's something that you've done or do. It's just a lot. And I just want to take the pressure off you right now as you're listening to this, because it's not a rush. There's not a race to the finish line. We're not going anywhere. We're not, you know, completing anything. We're not checking more off our fucking to-do list. Like, that is just way too much. It's a lot.
Yeah.
And I think we're exhausted, and just give yourself a break right here and know that you're not doing anything wrong. If that relationship didn't work out, it didn't work out for a reason. And it's time.
We're going to be diving into maybe some of the reasons, or just kind of how to heal in the later part of the episode.
Yeah, I know I'm kind of getting carried away here, but like, let's just, before we get into all that, can we talk about breakups? Me and you?
Yeah.
Me and you, let's talk.
They're really hard.
What was your experience?
I mean, I've had a bunch of different kinds of breakups, so I'll just dive into the first one.
Yeah.
You're gonna say our breakup? We've never experienced our breakup.
I was gonna say the hardest.
You know what? I would say probably the hardest was my first one, and I've experienced many breakups over the years, but I think the first one was really shocking to me, because I thought I knew what love was in that moment, and I was in a really unhealthy relationship for my first relationship. I lost myself constantly. I've talked about this on like many different podcast episodes that we've had, but I think in total in that relationship, I gave my all, and I didn't know what a relationship was supposed to look like. So I lost my friends, I lost my hobbies, I lost my dreams, my passions. I really lost everything about myself, because I was trying to fit into a mold that my partner wanted me to be at the time.
Right.
And as it was coming to the breakup, the moments where it wasn't ending, or where it was ending, I just really realized that I needed to start to unpack how I was feeling and if this was really supportive for me. But I realized over the 2.5, 3 years, however long we were together for, that I had become someone that I wasn't, that I didn't want to be. I was deeply unhappy with the partner that I had, and I just didn't like the relationship in general. We had both become really unhealthy for each other, and I decided that it was no longer serving me. And it was really, really difficult, because I had poured my entire life into this person. I had thought that I was going to get married to them, and I thought it was the end all be all. And I think that's a really scary thing, to come to terms with the fact that I was going to have to start over. And that was a really scary thing because I was like, I have nothing. I don't even know who I am. What am I going to do? And I think it left me with so many questions of how do I rebuild my life after I do this? And I was thinking about that even before I actually broke up with them. But it was really, really emotional. It was really confusing. But I remember the day that I broke up with them, I was a wreck, really a wreck. I told this story on TikTok one time, but I remember sitting on my bathroom floor and really feeling into the fact that I was so disappointed in myself. I was so disappointed that I had let this go on for so long, so many unhealthy patterns and just people pleasing the entire relationship. I mean, I was doing everything to make sure that the other person was happy. And I was so done with feeling like that. But also at the same time, I was confused with how everything was going to go after that.
Yeah.
So I was crying on the bathroom floor and I called them and I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's not you. It's me. I need to, the classic line, I need to figure out what I want for my life.
It's the worst.
Yeah, I need to figure out what I want for my life. And I need to be alone. I need to be alone for a while.
Was that like hard to say? Like, did you feel like, because in Pride Amplified and with our clients, a lot of what we do is we work with our clients on feeling into their body.
Yeah.
And I'm just imagining saying something like that was so hard to say. Did you feel like your throat maybe closed a bit? Like, what was that sensation in your body?
So in the whole entire relationship, I was not speaking up for what I wanted and needed at all. So there was always a block that was going on for me speaking up. But I think I had gotten so sick of living my life for someone else that I blurted it out, but it was really hard. I felt really sick in my whole body. And we always talk about the stress that we carry is totally in our body. So I remember tensing up and crying and just not feeling okay at all. But I knew that I needed to say this in order to figure out what made me happy eventually. So I said it. I said what I needed to say. I hung up and it was not healthy afterwards. There was a lot of back and forth of, all the complications of creating a life with someone that I definitely had to dive into. But overall, it was really difficult, but the number one thing that I did that I was so proud of was that I spoke up for myself, that I was able to leave something that was no longer serving me in order to create space for the life that I wanted to live. And I was left with a whole bunch of questions after that. So, obviously there's so much more to that story, obviously, which is everything that we teach, but that was such a pivotal moment for me after my first queer long-term breakup. So now I want to dive into yours. What was yours like?
Oh my gosh.
Not even just your first, but maybe one that really stood out to you and how you moved through it.
Yeah. No, it was hard because I was also, the one that knew I should leave. And I tried to leave multiple times and I kept going back to them. So I had ended it. Right. And I was like, okay, well, we're done now. And then I got lonely and I was so codependent and I needed someone and I didn't think anyone else was available. And so I went back to them. And so I had this relationship linger for a really, really long time. And I will never forget. And I think, honestly, the person that I was dating at the time was probably a little fed up with me and was like, okay, well, I'm like always here for you. And they were tired of that. And I remember the last time, and this is kind of how my breakup ended and how I went into it, was I came to them and I was like, okay, well, I guess maybe we shouldn't be together anymore. And they were like, yeah, I agree. And they didn't take me back. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, wait, no. And this is so toxic, right? Like I realized it after the fact and all that I was doing to try to keep this relationship alive. Like I've talked about it a few times, but I was the toxic one. I think we both were toxic, but I really was going back and forth and I didn't know what I wanted. And that's what happens when you don't know who you are, right? You go back and forth in these relationships, you don't have boundaries, and you're struggling. It's not a solid foundation. And I'll never forget that feeling. It felt like it was just so painful in my body. It felt like my heart broke into a million pieces all over the ground. And I remember just sobbing.
Yeah.
They hung up the phone and I was just laying there on my floor. On my floor, I'm laying there. Same thing, similar thing.
Yeah.
Why are we always on the
I was
floor?
like, are we telling the same story?
And I'm on the floor and I like want to bang my head against the wall. I feel so numb. Like I just want to feel something again.
Yeah.
And that's really, really graphic of me to say, but I felt terrible. I didn't feel wanted. I didn't feel loved. I didn't know who I was. I was like, what the fuck are you going to do? I'm saying a lot of bad words today. It's okay. You all get me. And I'm in the bathroom, right? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm looking at myself and I'm like, okay, well, they don't want you anymore, right? You have to start over. You know, that wasn't a good fit. And now is the time, but I didn't even know where to begin. I was still contacting them. I was still checking their social media. I was still trying to figure out, what they were up to with their friends. And I felt it, especially at night. I felt lonely. I felt like I need to text them, or if I had something to drink, maybe a glass of wine, I was like, okay, now I really need to text them. And it was this void was so present in me that I did not know where to turn. And I realized that if I kept holding on to that and I kept going on that same route, that I was going to be continuing this relationship and continuing to look and feel so rejected and empty when they wouldn't respond or they were with someone else.
Yeah.
And that was the hardest part through that breakup, is that I didn't know myself and I needed to figure out how to never have that happen in my relationships in the future.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about my breakup, but it was honestly so painful. And maybe here's some ways to know if you're not healed yet, right? You're still checking their social media. You're still, looking at who they're hanging out with, and you're trying to get all the inside info, and you're feeling really bad about it after. Like, it's not a good feeling. I think a lot of the work we do is centered around, how are you feeling after you make a decision about something?
Mm-hmm.
How did that person make you feel when you went on a date with them? How did you feel throughout the relationship? Like, all these reflective questions that help you process really what went on. And maybe you're really ignoring a lot of the feelings and you're distracting yourself by drinking or watching shows endlessly or throwing yourself into work.
Yeah, that's what a lot of our clients do. We found that, after a really bad breakup, they're just looking to throw themselves into really any kind of distraction, but mainly work, just so that they're not thinking about who they are, what they lost inside of themselves, and all parts of the breakup. And of course, distraction can only help for so long before all of the rest kind of plays into, the life that you are now trying to figure out by yourself. But, another way to tell if you're not healed yet is if you just broke up with someone recently and you're putting yourself right back out there on the dating apps. I mean, that's never done anything, especially when there is some work to do on yourself. And mainly what we've found is that a lot of the work that we do happens after a breakup because we've lost a lot of parts about ourselves.
Yeah. Well, sorry, something that stood out to me, and I think it's important to say, when you say healed, like you're not healed yet, let's focus on the emphasis of the word healed, right? Like, we're never fully healed. We're not perfect here. And that's something I really encourage our clients to stray away from, is that idea of perfectionism. Because I really struggled with perfectionism and trying to fit into all these different boxes and be perfect and all of that. And so when we talk about being fully healed, it's not being fully healed. There's no such thing as that, but it's knowing that you're okay on your own and that you don't need a partner to complete you. Yeah. Right? It's that foundational piece, because we're never fully healed. I'm telling you right now, getting into a relationship with Dani, if some of you have been to our retreats before, my story. I wasn't fully healed. I wasn't even, fully comprehending the fact that I needed to be whole on my own. So there are things that you have to learn, and it makes things a lot harder when you don't know that specific foundation. So I just wanted to touch on that, because I know we're saying like healed, and there's just no such thing as being fully healed, but like starting to heal yourself from that relationship. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. And you know what? I have a few ways that you can figure out how to heal from a breakup, but a lot of it comes from personal experience of what we would tell you not to do, because we've done this. We've done the opposite, and we want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself in the way that works for you. So there are so many different ways, but I have 5 different ways that you can be healing from a breakup, and these are in order. So let's go through it. So the first one is to let go of the fantasy. I want to dive into this really quickly because I think this is so important. Usually after a breakup, a lot of us are thinking about the best things that we had in the relationship, and that may be true, but I want to talk about a breakup as if it was unhealthy. I think that's a really separate thing, because if you were recently out of a relationship that was really nice and healthy and everything like that, this podcast is probably not for you. So let's dive into a breakup where you have been a people pleaser. Maybe things weren't working out. You lost yourself. It was unhealthy. So that's what I want to preface before we dive into it. Anyway, to let go of the fantasy of, thinking that it was all perfect the whole time, and letting go of the fantasy of who you thought this person was. A lot of the times we create an idea of a person inside of our head instead of who they actually are. So all of this is around being honest with what truly happened, what you truly did, and who this person really is, and the path that you went down. So really the first one is being honest with yourself about how all of it went, because if you're not honest with yourself, none of it's going to be able to change. You're not going to be able to get better and be better for your next relationship. The second one that I have is to process your emotions. We can't just continue to distract ourselves if we want to be better and actually heal. And the biggest point that I want you to take away from all of this is that time doesn't heal a breakup. Positive action does. You need to actually heal from a breakup. Letting time go on doesn't actually heal anything. It may make things a little bit better because, the heart may be more distant from the memory, but it is so important to actually put into action healing instead of just letting time pass.
You said something so interesting. The heart may be more distant from the memory. I like
because,
that.
Yeah, I think when time goes on, we forget some of the things that happened, but it doesn't mean that you are actually healed from all of what happened in the relationships. You can still bring in the same exact patterns into the next relationship. You'll still be attracting the same type of person in the next relationship. I mean, what happens when you don't process your emotions in a future relationship?
I mean, relationships are all about really understanding each other. Relationships are all about opening up your emotional capacity to love deeper, to have more joy, to experience just a connection that's profound. And when you don't know how to process your own emotions because you haven't dealt with them, you're going to bring that into your relationship, and you're not going to be able to hold space and be available for your partner.
Yeah.
I know that that's something that still often will come up out of spurts in our relationship, right?
Yeah.
Where I go, oh shit, this is something that I need to work on, right? Because there's highs and lows. I'm not going to say that it's just going to be downhill, because the first couple months may be real great in your relationship, right? And you're getting to know each other and you're in that dating phase. There's highs and lows, right? Where Dani will say something and it triggers something. It triggers a response, right? A reaction out of me. And I go, ooh, I haven't dealt with that yet. And then I have to go in and deal with myself. But what does that do, right? It takes away from me being available for her. But if I'm dealing with this stuff and I'm working on myself as we're in relationship, what happens? We both are working on ourselves. We're both taking care of ourselves. We're both loving ourselves. And we have more capacity to deal with the emotions and the things that are coming up in your relationship. But imagine you haven't dealt with any of that and you just bring it in.
Yeah,
that's what happens. It's a lot. And I think about it often that a lot of the times maybe I jumped real quickly, right? And I went, okay, I'm ready to be in this relationship, but I had a lot of work to do, and I'm still doing the work to this day. We're very honest and vulnerable about how our relationship started and what that looked like and how we're still doing the work. I mean, it's important stuff. And I'm telling you right now, it'd be a hell of a lot easier if I took more time for myself.
And a lot of the questions that we get asked whenever we're on Instagram or whenever we're talking with someone about moving through one of our programs, the question is, I'm already working with a therapist. I'm already looking at positive quotes. I'm already reading books. I think I'm good. And then we really dive into the conversation from there. And they realize that the work that they've done have gotten them so far, but they're still really, really stuck. And something I just wanted to talk about really quickly is that if you feel like you're not moving forward, it's time to look at a different way to move forward, because we can talk forever. And I'm not saying therapy is bad. Therapy is an incredible support team. But if you're finding that you're not moving forward, maybe it's time to figure out a new way to actually heal, new way to heal through your previous relationships, a new way to create healthy relationships, all of these different things. And that's exactly what we do. So
yeah,
anything you want to touch on?
Well, something that we do with our clients is really connect to the feelings in your body, connecting to the feelings in your body so that you begin to process them and you begin to allow yourself to sit with them enough where you're seeing them, you're validating them, you're acknowledging them, but also allowing you to figure out the action plan to move forward, to create new patterns, to create new pathways to healthy relationships. Number one, starting with yourself. And I think that's something really, really important. I mean, I see our clients already in the first week. So we just had someone join us in Pride Amplified, and they were like, oh my gosh, the first week I'm already having so much come to the surface, and I've been in therapy for years.
Yeah.
So much can happen when you allow yourself to open yourself up to what it looks like to move forward and not just sit with it and not do anything with it.
So we have 3 more steps of healing through a breakup. So let's continue. The next one is figuring out what you lost along the way. And a lot of people who come to us, they U-hauled in their previous relationship, which means that they moved very quickly in the beginning stages and they became one, they lost themselves completely. And it's really important to dive into who you were before to figure out what you lost along the way. Was it your hobbies? Was it your identity, your beliefs, your values? Figuring out those things, maybe even your relationships. A lot of the people that we work with have also lost their friendships, and I've seen through being in these relationships, they completely lose their individuality, which includes their relationships along the way. So figuring out what you lost, if you lost yourself, diving into those things are super, super important. And then the next step is to set your life up for success again, to figure out the foundation of who do you actually want to be. If you lost yourself entirely, you're going to have to start over and build that foundation within yourself. Who are you? Who do you want to be? What types of relationships do you want to have? Digging into your values, figuring out your purpose. There is so much that goes into the self-discovery journey, but it is so crucial and it is so exciting after a breakup to decide, you know what? I may have lost myself before, but now is my time that I get to figure out who I want to be. I know I'm a leader. I know I want to do great things in my life. And maybe I have lost myself for a little bit of time here, but I have the rest of my life to figure out who I want to be, the relationships I want to have, and how I can be better for my next relationships in all forms, not even just romantic relationships, but even platonic. So I think that's so important to figure out, okay, I'm ready to set my life up. How am I going to do that? Creating that foundation for yourself. And then the last step, getting support, because you know what, going through a breakup is really hard, especially after losing yourself. And like we've been talking about, having that support team, having the support and accountability and tools and resources to be able to move you forward is really important, because you don't have to do all of this alone. I know it's really scary to move through a breakup feeling lonely and not being sure of what the next steps are, but having support like us, like at Coming Out Happy, like joining Pride Amplified is so crucial to actually figuring out who do you want to be and creating that solid, deep and loving foundation within yourself. And that is how you heal from a breakup, my friends.
I wish I could have called myself. I wish I could have sent us a little DM. So now I'm going to extend that to you. If you were like, oh, this resonated more than anything today, I'm going through it, I'm ready to start the next chapter and I don't know where to turn. I've done a lot of the things that everyone says to do, but it's still not working. And I still feel that breakup is so present. I want you to go over to our Instagram at ComingOutHappy and DM us the word breakup pod. Breakup pod, and we will respond and give you resources and talk a little bit about what it looks like in Pride Amplified for us to support you along this journey. We'd love to have you and can't wait to see you in the DMs. Thank you so much for tuning in today, for being with us, and just everything that we have in this community. It wouldn't be here without you all. So thank you so much, and we'll see you on the next episode. Bye, everyone.